Meeting number 33 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Finance. Pursuant to the committee's motion adopted on Friday, February 5th, 2021, the committee is meeting to study all aspects of COVID-19 spending and programs. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25th.
Point of order, my humble apologies for interrupting you. Apparently, Mr. Kelly's been trying to get in for 10 minutes and somehow or another, he's just not able to connect.
Okay, we'll get the meeting started in any event, Tamara, and we've got a quorum. Today's meeting is taking place in, thanks for that, Tamara. Today's meeting is taking place in a hybrid format pursuant to the House Order January 25th, and therefore members are attending in person in the room and remotely using the Zoom application. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website, and it will cover only the person who's speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. I'd remind all participants that something like the House Commons rules, people are not allowed to take screenshots. They're just not permitted. So I'd ask folks to abide by all health protocols and stay safe. So with that, we will turn to the witness list. And as I said, we are a little tighter in this panel. We've only got an hour and 15 minutes. And if you could hold your comments to about 5, and then we'll go to questions. So we'll start with BGC Canada, Joss Berman, Director, Research and Public Policy, and Chad Pollio, Executive Director, BGC Dawson, Montreal. Go ahead, floor is yours.
Thank you. Let me start by recognizing and thanking the federal government, MPs, and Canada's federal civil servants for the critical and important work you are doing to support people living in Canada through this pandemic. Thank you. I'm proud to represent today, along with Chad, who you'll hear from in just a moment, our 84 clubs, which together serve more than 200,000 children and youth at over 775 locations across Canada. As one of Canada's largest child and youth serving organizations, our early learning and childcare and our before and after school programs help young people develop into healthy, active, and engaged adults. Over the past 100 years, and during these last 13 difficult months, our clubs have been there for vulnerable children, youth, and families. Today, clubs are providing food for families, partnering with their local food banks. We're providing safe childcare and programs for children and youth, and helping to share trusted information on COVID safety and vaccines with our members. We have rolled out safe and high-quality digital programs when kids can't be in clubs. Chad and I want to focus our remarks today on 4 key takeaways. First, while the Emergency Community Support Fund allowed clubs to further step forward in the early months of the pandemic to support our communities, the needs in our communities continue to outstrip our ability to fully respond. Importantly, as the demand for our programs and services rise, it means more dollars out the door, not in. Second, while the demand for our programs and services has risen, revenue has fallen. Our revenues across the country are down some $20 million after taking into account federal and other emergency supports due to large reductions in earned income and philanthropy. Third, programs like the Canadian Employment Wage Subsidy have been extremely important in helping charities like BGC protect staff positions in the face of declining revenues. The extension of this program to June is positive, and we support broad calls for further extension as the pandemic drags on. Lastly, frontline human service charities are still facing serious fiscal challenges that have not been addressed by government programs to date and are severely limiting our shared capacity to deliver services to communities that have borne the brunt of COVID-19's impacts. A continued response to this crisis demands more. This is why we have joined others and continue our call for a Community Services COVID Relief Fund in next week's budget. This fund would provide a temporary 18-month operating funding program to bridge our frontline agencies to the other side of this pandemic and support a transformation fund to help community services invest in their capacity, technology, operating models, mergers to come out of this pandemic stronger and more resilient. We thank members of this committee for your pre-budget recommendation for bridge operating grants for essential community human service organizations. Organizations like ours that are run by and for those that serve Black, Indigenous, and people of color are proud members of our shared economy, one that employs, I should say, 315,000 people across Canada. BGC has supported vulnerable community members for over 100 years and done so while balancing our books. This proposed fund wouldn't make us whole, but would allow us to continue to provide childcare and after-school programs, run safe transitional housing programs, offering newcomer support, virtual counseling, and shelters for people experiencing homelessness and women fleeing domestic violence. With that, let me pass it to Chad.
Thanks, Josh. BGC Dawson is a community organization that has recently celebrated our 60th anniversary and serves over 800 families in the Montreal area. The COVID-19 pandemic brought on some unique challenges for our community. Food security is one of our core programs. Pre-pandemic, we were serving between 40 to 50 individuals per week through our food bank. At the height of the pandemic, this number skyrocketed to 941 people per month. While we are extremely grateful and thankful for the Emergency Community Support Fund, which enabled us to meet this need temporarily, we have more requests for food than we have resources. We had to make the difficult decision to scale back our food bank and are now serving just over 400 individuals each month, but the demand remains. Summer Camp, one of our key revenue generating programs, was moved to a virtual format last summer and was offered free of charge. This significantly impacted our ability to meet our 2020 budget. On top of that, our building is in need of desperate repairs. This year, we invested over $100,000 in building maintenance and still have to plan to replace a leaking roof and original furnace in order to be able to keep our doors open. Our club, like others across Canada, had to make the difficult decision to lay off some staff and reduce program offerings. Approximately 70% of our staff nationwide are women, and we know that the services we provide allow mothers who so choose to enter and stay in the workforce. Looking forward, we are committed to being there for our community and want to be in a strong position to adapt our programs to meet new realities. An article in the Financial Post on April 8th found that the number of Canadians close to insolvency reached a 5-year high, with 53% of those polled saying that they are $200 or less away from not being able to meet their bills and debt payments each month. We know that a lot of the families that we serve are struggling financially and are just barely hanging on. As we move through this pandemic, organizations like ours need to be able to offer vital programs and services to all who need it as part of our commitment to long-term community care. Thank you for the opportunity to be here today.
Thank you both very much. Then turning to Big Brothers, Big Sisters of Canada, Matthew Chater, National President and CEO, and Margie Grant-Walsh, Executive Director from Pictou County, I believe. Go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. And thank you for the opportunity to be here. I think to echo my colleague, a significant thanks to all members for all that you do daily on behalf of Canadians during this pandemic, as well as beyond. Big Brothers Big Sisters has operated in Canada for over 100 years, and we facilitate intentional mentoring relationships with over 41,000 youth in 1,100 communities with the support of over 21,000 volunteers. Children and youth in our programs face toxic stress by living with adversities caused by systemic challenges like poverty, mental illness, neglect, addiction, and a range of other sources. In our research, 63% of young people in Big Brothers Big Sisters programs experience 3 or more of these adversities, while at the same time having only 1 or often 0 developmental relationships. The pandemic has only amplified these stressors, making them more complex and deeply rooted. Big Brothers Big Sisters mentoring is needed now more than ever. For example, calls to Kids Help Phone were up by 55% and through text 61%. 76% of the youth reaching out to them said that they had no one else that they felt safe to turn to. Many of these callers are referred to Big Brothers Big Sisters, as we are ideally suited to help. Just as we just completed research with York University and the University of Victoria that found mental health issues like depression and anxiety during the pandemic are significantly lower among youth enrolled in Big Brothers Big Sisters programs, and that rates of depression and anxiety drop the more that youth are engaged with their mentor. The challenge is that we already had 15,000 youth on our waitlist before the pandemic, and now that list is growing daily. This increased demand comes at the same time as revenue has plummeted, dropping by 13 million in 2020, and we are projecting a further 30% drop in 2021, a total shortfall of 25 million across the Federation. While the government has provided additional funding to the Kids Help Phone, which we fully support, funding a crisis line without also assisting community service organizations to which those youth are referred to is like the 911 emergency call service, or funding the 911 emergency call service without providing the medical systems in order to respond. We are extremely grateful for the programs that the federal government has introduced, like the wage subsidy and the Emergency Community Support Fund. Without those, our losses would be even greater, but there is now nowhere else to turn and much more that needs to be done. We are not alone in this dilemma of increased demand for our services, coinciding with the most severe financial crisis in our history. And that is why Big Brothers Big Sisters, alongside the YMCA of Canada, the YWCA of Canada, BGC Canada, United Way Centraide Canada, and the National Association of Friendship Centers, and many others providing frontline support, have come together to appeal for a Community Services COVID-19 Relief Fund. You've heard from my colleagues at previous meetings, and Josh here has spoken to it today, but I'll also lend my voice to plead with this committee to ask the Finance Minister to establish that funding in the April 19th budget. This is about whether your communities continue to have organizations like ours providing the services that governments do not. Youth mentoring through Big Brothers Big Sisters will be critical to Canada's economic, social, and public health recovery. To provide a local context, I'll turn it over to my colleague, Margie Grant-Walsh, Executive Director of Big Brothers Big Sisters of Pictou County, Nova Scotia.
Thank you, Matthew. Think back to when you were 9. Who is important in your life? What would it be like without that person? Our children and youth have been facing isolation, mental health challenges, food insecurity, affordable housing concerns, and struggles with educational learning. I can speak from my experience in northern Nova Scotia. Rural communities have been most affected. We have no public transportation, challenges switching to virtual mentoring, connectivity issues, and in the recent report card on child and family poverty in Nova Scotia, we have the 3rd highest child poverty rate in Canada. 1 in 4 children live in poverty. Demand for service has increased. We have seen an increase of requests for essential services like food and heat. What social service organization can say they are in contact weekly with their families? We can. We're not only mentoring children facing adversities, but families as well, and they trust us. Staff have been overloaded, stressed, and working extremely hard to support our families, pivoting on a moment's notice on a tight budget. Top this off with the largest mass shooting in Canadian history. Revenues have dropped substantially. Unlike many organizations, we fundraise a substantial part of our budget. At our agency, 69% is special events alone. 2020's drop in revenue was 29%, over $270,000. In my 34 years with Big Brothers Big Sisters, I've never seen a year like it. We are blessed to live in Nova Scotia for our low COVID numbers, but with that brings challenges. People isolating themselves to prevent spread. The biggest challenge is the lack of contact from a caring adult who is invested in their well-being. Think again to when you were 9 and how you would deal with a pandemic without your mentor. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you both, and thanks for what you do. Turning then to the Coalition Canada Basic Income, Barbara Borax. Go ahead, Barbara.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I am pleased to present today on the topic of a basic income guarantee. I would like to acknowledge MP Jerovich's private member bill, C-273, and MP Gazan's motion 46. Mr. Chair, if a basic income support system had already been in place, a more effective mechanism would have been available for responding to the financial needs of people affected by COVID-19. I will begin with a summary of the benefits of a guaranteed basic income. It will help people meet their basic needs. It will improve physical and mental health outcomes. It will provide a more effective way of supporting seasonal and gig workers. It can help transition jobs from, example, fossil fuels to renewables. Basic income is an effective income support partner to a streamlined employment insurance program. For people living in poverty, this program gives them back their dignity and personal empowerment. In recent decades, basic income has been supported by representatives from all parties in Canada. For example, all provincial political parties in PEI unanimously support a basic implementation project and are asking the federal government to work with them. I have been working with basic income advocates for more than 6 years and have heard various concerns about a basic income. These fall into 3 groups: misconceptions about the details of basic income, attachment to the status quo, and skepticism about changing our current systems of income support. There are several misconceptions about basic income. Most Canadian advocates are seeking an income-targeted, not means-tested basic income delivered to people living on low incomes. This replaces certain transfers and works in tandem with employment insurance and social support programs. The latest PBO report estimates that basic income will lead to a substantial reduction to the poverty rate at a gross cost of $85 billion in the first year and a net cost of near zero after accounting for specific tax credits. The PBO report does not include downstream savings a basic income could have in sectors such as healthcare and criminal justice. The second concern, attachment to the status quo, we could only hope that arises from a belief in the efficacy of the current system and not from personal or professional vested interest. To the third concern, skepticism, I say I respect this stance. In the face of major changes, disbelief contributes to good governance when accompanied by openness to evidence-based new practices. Mr. Chair, issues of cost are primary to your work. And for the question of a basic income guarantee, the evidence indicates that the benefits to Canada are worth the cost. Our current mechanisms of income supports are outdated, overly complicated, and expensive. The current income support system prevents low-income Canadians from developing financial independence, reduces financial incentives to work, contributes to poor educational outcomes, and also adds to healthcare costs. As well, the evidence indicates that the existing system contributes to people remaining in abusive situations, weakens our arts and cultural industry, and hinders capacity building in our farming communities. I can make these statements because evidence supports them. Mental health problems, physical health problems, and food insecurity are all tied to low income. The overrepresentation at all stages of the criminal justice system of Indigenous peoples and those of African ancestry reflects their overrepresentation amongst impoverished people. The evidence of these effects of low income and poverty come from institutions such as National Farmers Union, Canadian Public Health Association, Canadian Association of Social Workers, Ontario Dietitians for Public Health, QPPEI, Service Employees International, together with other labor unions, Elizabeth Fry Society, Social Planning and Research Councils, municipalities, and many, many more. These institutions support a basic income. Mr. Chair, I am asking that FINA study the evidence about basic income in order to understand its financial and social implications with the goal of implementation. I believe the evidence will lead this committee to recognize that a guaranteed basic income will give Canadians better value for their tax dollars and a more resilient society going forward. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you very much, Barbara. Before I go to our next witness, the first questions will be placed by Ms. Jensen, then Ms. Sirowitz, Mr. St. Marie, and Mr. Johns. And I don't believe we've Pat Kelly on here yet. Hopefully we can get him. Okay, then turning to Festivals and Major Events Canada, Mr. Martin Waugh, Executive Director. Welcome back, Martin. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Bonjour, membres.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of the Finance Committee. I'm very happy to be with you once again. FAME and REMI represent more than 500 festivals and events in Canada with both direct and affiliated membership in a sector of tourism and cultural industries that generates some billions of dollars for the GDP in this country year after year. In September, FAME at the Chateau Laurier with TIAC, with the Association of Hotels in Canada, and the Indigenous Tourism Association launched Coalition of Hardest Hit Businesses. I invite you to go to the website, hardesthit.ca. There are more than 100 logos you'll find there from businesses, associations of all types, all of which deal with FAME's two major areas of interest, tourism and culture. In the fall, further to a press conference, we were heard by the Government of Canada, and we were happy to see our reality recognized in the speech from the throne in the fall economic statement. The rate of queues was increased thereafter, and we are grateful to the government for that. But given the perspective of a possible end of the wage subsidy in June, our coalition officially called upon the government some 3 weeks ago in a press conference. We asked the Minister of Finance to take advantage of the budget to extend and improve queues beyond June the 5th, as well as the SERS, and extend it to them both to the end of 2021. We understand that these are expensive programs for Canadian taxpayers, but if you have to make choices, we believe that you should continue to support fewer businesses, and particularly only those that are the hardest hit. For example, the tourism and cultural ones. Clearly, if the wage subsidy must come to an end in June, it would only be to make place for something like a wage subsidy for hardest hit businesses. In a festival, no matter what the jurisdiction, no matter where it is, independent income represents 85% of the budgets, and government income is about 15%. And so our only income that we have now, in light of this pandemic, really has been very, very difficult for us. Without queues, we just can't make it. And we thank those, and we've had to thank those who have helped us, but we have had to let people go. And indeed, once the third wave is over, once vaccination has taken effect, we hope that there will be festivals again, respecting all the health orders, but we don't think it will be before the end of 2022, the business models that will be able to be back to normal. We have really only crossed half the desert to date. We're told that the pandemic is not over yet, that Canadians have to continue to try to make it to the finish line and also to make sacrifices. We say okay to the government, but this is a two-way street. If governments maintain restrictions, they should also maintain the support to businesses that are suffering the most from those restrictions, like ours. It's too bad to lose festivals or cultural and tourist industries in general, but we will need more than ever a wage subsidy. And it seems that once we are over this pandemic and we relaunch the economy, we will have to heal together. And that takes getting together. If we know the 55 recommendations that have been made in your report, we support them. And because they fall in line with our idea of a program to relaunch our festivals and events. We know that you have said that financial support, supplementary support, should be given until the COVID restrictions can be lessened and taken away in all safety. We are here in a moment where we perhaps won't be able to put out 90,000 people on the Plains of Abraham in Quebec or at the Calgary Stampede and we hope to in July 2022, but it won't be June 5, 2021.
Okay, thank you very much, Martin. We'll go to the first round, and I'm going to hold the first round to 5 minutes per questioner. That way we can get 10 rounds in and during the panel. So starting with Ms. Jansen.
Yes, thank you very much. My question is to Mr. Waugh. I come from Cloverdale, Langley City, so we have the Cloverdale Rodeo here downtown, and I was chatting with the organizers there, and they mentioned that just missing last year cost them $2 million in revenue, and the spin-off amount for Surrey, $30 million. I think of the Best Western Hotel that's on the corner right there. I think of all the fairs and markets that are, you know, the small food trucks and all this that have lost their ability to make money. Other things that the Cloverdale Rodeo does, they have, you know, like Gone Country, the Twins Cancer Fundraiser. They up to now they've raised $3.9 million. They can't do their event. Ride to Conquer Cancer can't do their event. 10,000. The 5K runs can't do their event. Conventions can't be held there. Concerts, trade shows, the famous Longhorn Saloon, all of these incredible local initiatives that make our community what it is are completely off the table. And as you mentioned, I mentioned it to the Cloverdale Rodeo that we don't see things opening till 2022 at the rate the vaccinations are rolling out right now. And the line went silent. He said that will be the end of many of these things that I just mentioned. Could you possibly talk a little bit more about that?
Oui, merci pour votre question.
Yes, thank you so much for your question. It sets out the drama that is being lived, experienced by the communities in your riding. In Calgary, merchants are just in a catastrophic situation. If you look at 2020, we're wondering what's going to happen in 2021. But even with TIFF in Toronto, the economic impact has been considerable. The same in Ottawa with Blues Fest, the Jazz Festival in Montreal, in Quebec City. All the businessmen of La Grande Allée who normally do a good business aren't doing any. So the impact on our communities is even greater than the impact on festivals and events. That is why we made the recommendation to have a stimulus program for tourism that would be based on events and festivals, a type of a program that would be based on what was done in 2009 and 2010. And in that recommendation, in the 55 recommendation, we hope that we will be able to see some good news, hear some good news in the coming budget that will help us out over the coming years, because we do know that the levels will not be the same as they were in the past in terms of revenues and also participation. So it is only programs like those from the government that will help us get through this desert, the other half of the desert.
Ask you, have you been looking at what sorts of criterias do you think could possibly help us reopen? I've been asking, whether or not, could we get some certainty about what we would need to see in order to begin to reopen again? I was chatting with someone from a big marketing company, and they were saying, if we get something like, okay, 50, if you would combine the vaccination level with the immunity, as well as, masking and all that sort of thing, if we could actually get some criteria by which we could decide whether we could open, that would actually give us the ability to start planning. Have you talked about anything like that? Because it seems like right now we have absolutely no plan whatsoever.
Mr. Waugh?
Non, effectivement, il y a
No, you're right. There is no plan. I deplore that fact. We are convinced that we will be able to organize this summer some events here and there, Canada, in safe circumstances, but they won't be events with the same high numbers of people attending. But we're going to try to do things, and we have an inventory of possibilities. Rapid tests, for example, vaccination passport, social distancing, enforcing the physical distancing at a festival with barriers, with structures, with platforms, with chairs, whatever. There is a way of doing that, of ensuring social distancing at a festival. But in each jurisdiction, it is different. I come back to speak to you about Quebec because it's different everywhere. And we are now in Quebec living through the third wave. That's a real problem.
Running out of time.
Well,
I just one more question.
You are out of time, but we'll give you it. Go ahead, very quick.
Okay. Has anyone thought of suing the government for damages for being so late, for screwing up this vaccination rollout?
Maybe we shouldn't have given you. Anybody going to answer that question? Welcome in, Pat. Kelly. I don't see any answers there. Turning to Ms. Sirowitz, followed by Mr. St. Marie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank everyone for their excellent presentations and very thoughtful ones. So thank you for being here today. I'm going to direct my questions to Ms. Borax from Coalition Canada Basic Income. I have three questions, so I hope you could be as succinct as you can, Ms. Borax. My first question to you is, whenever someone talks about some sort of a guaranteed basic income, many people believe it would serve as a disincentive for people to work. How would you respond to this?
There is no evidence to support that statement. Actually, on the contrary, the research that has taken place both in Canada and internationally indicates that, generally speaking, there are two categories of people who do remove themselves from work. The first is women who opt and choose to stay home with young children. And the second is people going back to upgrade their skills, either going back to schools or get different kind of skills so that they can get better jobs. So just to emphasize that, we have not come across any evidence to support the claim that people go on basic income to just stay home and do nothing.
Thank you very much for that. And the other thing that tends to come up is that this is going to be very expensive, and it would be too expensive for any national government to support. How would you respond to that?
Well, if you look at the PBO numbers, they come in at about 85 billion. Previous ones at 80 billion. And again, that's looking at a 75% of the poverty level. There are many ways to finance that. You can look at the tax credits, as the PBO did, which comes down to net zero. So basically, it is a net cost of zero to implement the program. You can look at incorporating the current cost that the government spends on social support programs, income support programs, which is about 45 billion. you're bringing it down to 45 billion. You can also take off about another 20 billion, which is the income supports that provinces utilize, which brings you down to about $20 billion. And that is the same amount that the government is spending on child benefit. And we know how that has raised children out of poverty. Raising taxes is not something we think needs to be looked at. So the question comes down to, is this program worth it?
So, and maybe one of the things just to clarify before I go to my next question, Ms. Borax, is I think the PBO report basically took the Ontario model and basically sort of applied it across Canada under a number of assumptions. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And there's also a number of different definitions of a guaranteed basic income program. So it could be a floor, as former Senator Hugh Segal has suggested. It could be Minco, sort of like a model that's based on something Manitoba had done. So there's any number of different ways to actually sort of create a guaranteed basic program across Canada. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay, my final question to you is: there are some members of the disabled community that are a bit nervous about the implementation of a guaranteed basic income. My personal principle is that no guaranteed basic income program should ever be put into place unless every participant is better off. How would you respond to those in the disabled community who might be a bit nervous about some sort of a guaranteed basic income program going into effect?
We strongly support the statement that anyone going into basic income should not be worse off. As a matter of fact, the research done on the one-year Ontario basic program, which again was at 75% of the poverty level, everyone stated that they were better off because of it. If and when hopefully the government does go into negotiations to start developing a basic income, these negotiations should be done together with groups to represent disabled individuals.
Thank you very much. And maybe my final question to you is just the youth in Davenport, and I'd also say that we heard from many youth over the weekend at a LPC conference, very much support guaranteed basic income. And my understanding is that they feel that the world of work is changing quickly. Automation and AI is eliminating both blue collar and white collar jobs. There's much more of an unpredictable future around jobs, and they're losing confidence that they'll ever be able to sort of get ahead the way their parents did. And so they see something like a guaranteed basic income model as a way that's going to provide them with some stability as they try to make their way through the world. Would you agree that that is a sentiment from our youth, and that a guaranteed basic income program would provide that stability?
Yes, we actually have a very large youth network across Canada, but that's a sentiment that applies not just to youth, but to any sector of precarious work. Arts is another one, actually. There's a very, very strong support for basic income from the arts community.
Thank you. And maybe my last question is actually to the Festivals and Major Events Canada, Martin Roy. Mr. Roy, at the beginning of March, our Minister Gilles Beau had announced $181.5 million to support arts and live event workers in response to COVID-19. Has this funding in any way been helpful to the Festivals and Major Events Canada sector?
Pour l'instant,
Well, for the moment, it's a little too soon to know exactly the extent to which the festivals have been able to benefit. Yes, that's a large amount of money, of course, but it goes out, it's spread out amongst all the many players that are there in the cultural industry. And we know that since the beginning of 2020, 500 million was set out for culture. So it's 10 or 12 only went to festivals. So if it's proportional, it will hopefully be beneficial.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all. We'll go to Mr. St. Marie, followed by Mr. Johns, and then on to Mr. Kelly. Gabriel?
Oui, merci.
Thank you, Wayne. First of all, I'd like to tell you that my second part of this panel is going to be set aside. I'll be sharing my time with Elizabeth May if she wants it. But thank you to all our witnesses today. It's been really interesting to listen to you, to hear what you have to say. Mr. Roy, I'll begin with you for the questions. remind us how these cultural events play an important role, the role of an economic engine for the economy, not just in tourism, but overall culture. Thank you, sir. I think your question is related to the previous question of our colleagues from British Columbia. It has been proven in a very serious study, KPMG study, that each dollar generated, spent by somebody who goes to a festival will be of benefit to the festival, of course, but that money will be spent in the hotel. So a quarter to the hotel and a third to restaurants, to the hospitality industry. So it's spread out in that way. It is in all the ecosystem of cultural events and festivals. This is important. This is why I like your economic engine reference. It's very important. But there are tourists that will go to the events, and that has a spin-off effect for transport as well. Yes, yes, you're quite right. And you were mentioning the Grande Allée businessmen, the shopkeepers there. I can tell you that they're really looking forward to the return of tourists. With respect to the impact on your organizations, can you explain what has the impact been for you and your affiliated organizations? Well, you have to take care of the hardest hit businesses. We are still going to be strapped, if you like, for the second consecutive year. And we will not be able to recover in the way that we did in the past. We do need some help, some compensation. And if in fact the wage subsidy has to end in June 2021, well, surely there should be some help available otherwise for festivals and to help tourism before next year. It is in this spirit that we see it. The government says, well, we have to support until we have crossed the river or we have pushed our way through this storm and gotten to the finish line. Well, then we do need extended help until beyond June 2021, until the end of the year. 85% of the revenue is generated independently at festivals. Well, thank you. The foreseeability is important. For Madame Borax now. A question I have for you is with respect to a universal minimum guaranteed wage. Some time ago in the House, we were told that the money would be better spent for those who have the greatest need rather than to give it to everybody across the board. What do you think of that?
Basic income advocates in Canada do support an income-targeted basic income, which, as you said, goes to people who most need it. We do not support giving it to everybody.
Bon, c'est clair.
That's very clear. Thank you. That's all for me, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Gabriel. Turning to Mr. Johns, 5 minutes. Go ahead, Gord.
Thanks very much, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all of the witnesses for really important work that you're doing for Canadians, especially during these difficult times. I'm going to start first with Mr. Polito. I really appreciate you talking about food security. In my riding, a lot of the organizations benefited greatly from the Emergency Food Security Fund that came out at the beginning of the pandemic, but also the second round that came during the second wave. Now we're in the third wave, and they haven't gotten a top up, and they're literally shutting down the program. So the Bread of Life in my riding, the local Salvation Army, Lush Valley, all of them relied on this funding for their warming centers, for food distribution to the most marginalized, which has grown significantly, their client base because of the pandemic. Can you talk about how important it is that we get a third round out to these community organizations?
Yes, as you say, food security is one of the major issues that has been brought on by the pandemic. Our organization recently, we just received another grant from Second Harvest that was sponsored by Agri-Food Canada to help bridge the gap. We just received that news yesterday, but without these funds, we wouldn't be able to respond to all of the needs that are coming through our doors. There's more needs coming in that we're able to respond to, but we're doing our best to provide what we can to our community in these needs. So I think another wave of funding would be of great benefit to organizations across Canada that are doing this frontline work.
Thank you. Ms. Borax, I'm really appreciating you talked about the universal basic income, how important it is. We just got a report, Building Regional Prosperity in the Alberni-Clayoquot region, and it's a part of our poverty reduction plan. 27% of people in our riding, well, in that area of our riding, are making a choice whether they're going to pay their rent, buy food, or pay for their hydro. And they're not able to do all three. I mean, that's completely unacceptable in a country like ours. Can you talk about how important a universal basic income is to address those concerns of those community members?
It's impossible to overstate how important that is. A lack of income leads to so much mental and physical hardship, to mental and physical damage to their health. As you noted, food insecurity. I just want to focus on food insecurity alone for a moment. The 2017-18, there were 4.4 million people in Canada who are living in food insecure households. This is not limited to just people on social support. 60% of households on social support are food insecure, but 65% of households who are food insecure are actually in wage labor. And the stress that this creates for people. There was actually a new study out of the States showing how poverty is affecting the development of brains in children and infants. And we know what the long-term repercussions are when you're food insecure at that age. So to live with that constant stress of how do I pay my bill, how do I eat, the damage that does not just to one person's soul, but to one person's brain is we have the evidence.
I really appreciate you citing the importance of that in our emotional and spiritual health as well. The pandemic has clearly shown the extent of which persons with disabilities, seniors, and people living with complex mental health conditions have been largely neglected by government. One of the main focuses and promises of this government during the pandemic is to make sure that no one in Canada has fallen through the cracks. Do you believe the government's done a good job to make sure no one's fallen through the cracks? And can you talk also about the importance of CERB and now the CRB and how those programs have helped people get through these times, but also those that have been left out?
Ooh, you're asking a lot. I'll try to get this in as short a time as possible. One of the things we have learned from CRB is that governments can respond quickly. When government needs to, they can respond quickly. What we've also learned is through CERB are that people have fallen through the cracks. The reason that they've fallen through the cracks is because the CERB was based on a traditional employment insurance system, and that system was based on a very old-fashioned, a 19th century definition of work. So work is wage labor. The EI system has had to put so many bandages on to start dealing with gig labor, precarious labor. So what CERB and what COVID has indicated to us is something many people have known for a long time, is the current system of EI and income supports is broken. The EI system needs to be simplified, and it needs some other type of income support to work with it in order to take care of people who do not fall into any of the traditional categories that an EI would fulfill.
Okay, thank you both. Turning then to Pat Gelly, who will be followed by Mr. Fraser. Pat.
All right. Well, thank you to all. Good to finally be here, and thank you to the IT team. Had a chain of strange events that seemed to prevent me from getting on to this call. I'm going to begin. I'd like to ask Monsieur Roy about your, just to maybe follow up where we left off when you were at committee in December. Back then, you had said that if we're going to save the summer of 2021 festival, the 2021 festival and event season, a big chunk of the population would have to be vaccinated by this summer. Could you comment on the current state of vaccination and what it means for this 2021 summer season?
Listen, I think this is the problem. We are in a state of uncertainty. In Quebec, Premier Legault says as of the 21st of June, all Quebecers who want a vaccine will be vaccinated. And then on the other hand, you have Mr. Trudeau, who says that Canadians should be all vaccinated by the end of September. So between the two of them, there should normally be the possibility to reach a safe level in June, July, or at the beginning of August between these two dates. We're trying to get some sort of direction, guidance from Public Health Canada, but really we're in the dark here, and we have this third wave that has just begun. Clearly, I come back to the fact that there are solutions, but you have to exploit those possibilities. You have a vaccine that's being held out to you as some sort of possibility that will allow you to travel in the future, but people have to be vaccinated.
Well, that's just yet, and with all due respect to the comments of Premier Legault, it is the federal government that is trying to procure vaccines and has done an inadequate job. If we're going to get to everybody, it takes 2 doses to vaccinate, and I don't see how. I would love to see everybody in Quebec and indeed the rest of Canada to get their 2 doses by June and have a summer festival season. But there doesn't appear to be any chance that we're going to get to the 2 doses. And have everybody that wants to be fully immunized to be so. So in the meantime, you spoke of maximizing use of all the tools available. You did speak about in your last visit about we talked a little bit about rapid results tests and the proper deployment of that, and you talked about if they were to become widely available. These could be used and to help not only festivals and events, but restaurants and other recreational activity to take place. What's been the progress since your last appearance or your December appearance on rapid results tests?
Well, there hasn't been much progress because the governments, federal or provincial, have not necessarily shown much interest in rapid result tests or in using them in the context that you described. We have been approached by the suppliers of rapid result tests. We'd be in favor of it, but we've had no discussions with public health or with the government, and we haven't been authorized to receive more people. So why then would you get involved in rapid result testing when you only have 250 people allowed to go to an event? The rapid testing should allow you to have increased large crowds attending an event, and you have to do that with the government and also with public health authorities.
Last question, Pat.
You did in your response to my first question, you really talked about making maximum use of all the tools available, that the tools exist to help salvage some kind of a season this year. Could you just comment on what you think might be possible and whether or not any of these steps require action from the federal government? Here's a chance for further recommendations to the government.
Yes, absolutely. Well, there has to be leadership with respect to rapid result testing, as we've said, but also with respect to vaccine passports. Are all the provinces going to reach different conclusions, different solutions? The government of Canada should really be rapidly assessing the possibility of vaccine passports. But once you have one shot, a single vaccination, you know that there won't be the same type of pressure on our health system. So perhaps a certain number of activities could start taking place in July or August, and perhaps a part of a park or a gathering area could be set aside for people who have been fully vaccinated, and another area where they haven't been fully vaccinated and where they perhaps would have to have some control. I've read about these passports, vaccine passports. Decisions have been made in the UK, in Denmark, in a variety of countries, and Canada absolutely has to ask itself the same questions as the other countries.
Okay, thank you all. We'll turn to Mr. Fraser, who's splitting his time with Peter, followed by Ms. May. Go ahead, Sean.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I'll direct my questions toward Margie Grant Walsh from Big Brothers Big Sisters, who happens to be just down the road from me here in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. The testimony from yourself and your colleague focused in part on the stressors that have been exacerbated by the pandemic for young people in our community. I would hazard to guess that we talked to some of the same young people. I remember at the early days of the pandemic, there was a lot of fear about what this public health emergency may mean. And over the course of the year, people became robbed of their community activities or sports teams at school, their proms, seeing their friends, their experience in the classroom. And I think you're absolutely right to point out how much this has impacted the mental health and well-being of young people. I know we put support towards the Kids Help Phone, I think it was late March of last year, because we saw a serious surge in the need of mental health supports for young people. One of the things that I hear about whenever we talk about telehealth or virtual health is reservations from the public when they hear about 1-800 lines or seeing somebody through a screen when they may need access to a person. And certainly there are people who will need that in-person care for their mental health supports. But I'm curious from your experience if you can highlight whether these investments in the Kids Help Phone or other similar services can actually help an organization like yours connect with people in real life.
Thanks, Mr. Fraser. Actually, they really can. The investments that go toward, for example, the Kids Help Phone have certainly impacted local organizations, I think, right across the country. What tends to happen when they get a call, they would then refer to a local agency. We're finding, as you had commented on, particularly the increase of isolation, mental health issues. As a matter of fact, we're finding that these kids, particularly in rural areas that have been isolated, they really require to have that intentional mentorship in their life. For without that, they're really lost. Here in Pictou County, I can comment from my experience, is we have no transportation. Public transportation and also connectivity issues in some of the outlying areas. Many of our clients don't have access to mobile devices, whether it's a tablet or a telephone. So, of course, being able to connect with their mentor has been very difficult. The other thing that we've been seeing, too, is in our schools, of course, when the pandemic first started, many of the schools were very uncomfortable. We all were really not knowing what to expect and how this was going to lay out. So schools were very hesitant at first to let us into the school. We currently in Pictou County are in 19 schools. So multiply that by the 102 agencies in the country. So many of those kids have not had access to their mentors. We know that 42% of youth said their mentor helped them feel less isolated during the pandemic. We know that 70% of youth who've had regular contact with their mentors said it helped them feel less worried or anxious. And 44% of youth engaged with Big Brothers Big Sisters of Canada reported feelings of depression versus 51% among other youth. So we know that having a caring adult in a child's and youth's life really makes a difference. And I think people tend sometimes to think of us as the fluffy organization, but we know that every dollar that is spent towards mentorship programs is reinvested back into the community at 23 to 1. So it's very, very important.
Thank you both. One question to you, Mr. Fragiskatis.
Thank you, Chair. My question will go to Mr. Chater, who I know has London ties, and if there's any remaining time, Mr. Chair, it's the same question for Mr. Berman. The COVID-19 emergency response programs have gone a long way for not-for-profit organizations. We've heard that at length at this committee. But of course, there are remaining gaps. When you're building the plane and flying it at the same time, there will be gaps that exist. From your perspective, again, to begin with, Mr. Chater, what is the most pressing gap? What is the most obvious gap, rather, that exists that the federal government can act on to deal with?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I appreciate it. I'd say the most pressing issue would be the element of the shared proposal that we've sent into government around transformation of the respective federations as well as the not-for-profit sector. This pandemic has certainly highlighted a number of challenges that we have within organizational structures, how we approach service delivery, how we collaborate and work together, recognizing the various values that we, as our collective organizations, have in community, and how do we ensure that those dollars continue to go right to the front lines and support. To be able to support community. So in the proposal that we put forward, we have a significant amount of dollars, not only the 18-month transition or bridge funding, that short-term momentary support, but the support for vitality. So as we navigate through the third wave, as we prepare to be a more resilient community and a resilient sector of community service organizations, that we're prepared for that.
Okay, thank you all. 2.5 minutes to Ms. May, followed by the same with Mr. Johns. Elizabeth?
Thank you so much, Rand. Thank you for the chance to ask this really amazing panel. And as someone who still misses Pictou County, it's really hard to move on, but I need to ask Barbara Borack some more questions, if that's okay. On the basic income side, I was fascinated by your reference to the employment insurance system being designed around a 19th century version of the world of work. And what I wanted to ask is whether the case for basic income is bolstered if we look ahead a bit, instead of the rearview mirror, at what artificial intelligence is going to mean for the world of work. I know I've seen some advocates make a link between the importance of having some guaranteed livable income or basic income as we move into a very different economy where not everybody is necessarily going to be working if they're replaced by, I don't know. I don't want to say robots. It begins to sound too new agey, but it definitely with artificial intelligence. So your reaction to that theory? Thank you.
Thank you for the question. Basic income, the beauty of basic income is it provides a mechanism whenever the nature of economies or jobs are changing. So the movement toward robots, AI, that is a particular example. Another, I think, extraordinary example is the prediction is that green jobs are going to be growing at a huge rate in Canada. I think that it was noted that one of the highest growths of jobs is going to be in Alberta. But these jobs require a different skill set. So how do you transition jobs, for example, from people who are working in an oil-based economy into a green job and a higher skill set economy? And that's where basic income kicks in. It gives that buffer for both individuals and economies and governments to allow people to retrain into different kind of jobs. So AI is one of them. Green jobs are another. Another area that no one's really touched on in this discussion yet is how basic income can help build capacity in farms and in rural areas because the EI system does not work for them.
Very quickly, Elizabeth.
Okay, just very quickly then to, again, in terms of where you see the world of work moving, how quickly, I mean, if basic income bolsters us through transitions, how quickly should we have, if we'd had it in place before COVID, we obviously would have been better off than in trying all the Band-Aid programs. I know that wasn't very quick. I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes, there, for a quick answer. 30% of workers right now in Canada are precariously employed. 37% of workers are precariously employed.
Thank you, Barbara. You were quick and you were in. Elizabeth wasn't, but that's dandy. Turning to Mr. Johns, followed by Mr. Vach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Roy, we know tourism is going to be the last major sector to recover from the pandemic, and consequently, really, it's the hardest hit sector as well. And festivals and major events are a huge draw for a lot of communities. Certainly, the Parksville Beach Festival in my riding, it's actually critical for drawing people visitation to our area. We don't expect even with vaccination that we're going to see much international travel this summer. You talked about the wage subsidy and the rent program and the need for a commitment from the federal government to have certainty that those programs are going to be extended to the end of the pandemic and to the end of the year at bare minimum. Can you also talk about the CEBA loan? It's at $60,000 right now. The NDP is calling for it to be extended to $80,000. And the repayment date not just to be next year, because that's going to be nearly impossible for any of these events and any of the businesses that rely on it, but have that repayment date, farther out, maybe 2025. Can you speak about the importance of those supports to save your sector and any additional supports that might help you?
With respect to CEBA, it's something that is very useful for small festivals. $40,000, $50,000 can be a great help for very small events. But events like Stratford, like the Stampede or others, it's 30, 60, $75 million. So in that instance, that type of money won't go very far to help them. But in the events that have become deficit events over the course of the past year, 20 million in the hole. If I'm not wrong, Stratford has more than $10 million worth of deficit. So these tens of thousands of dollars aren't going to change a lot, but for small events and festivals.
That it should be expanded, that there should be a credit portion to the HASCAP and to the LEAF funding, that funding that's being given to those larger festivals?
Mr. Wong?
I think that the answer is that would be the most appropriate. What we suggested would be to create a program that would be specifically directed to events and festivals. In the past, the government has realized that enough wasn't done for festivals, but that specific nature of festivals should be taken into consideration soon. We hope that it will be in the budget. We do hope that the budget will contain some measures to salvage our business.
Okay, thank you. Thank you all. We'll split about 8 minutes between Mr. Falk and Ms. Katrakis. Ted?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you to all the witnesses for your presentations here. It's been very interesting listening to the discussion and the questions as well as the comments. I'd like to talk to Mr. Chater. In my riding in Provencher in Manitoba, a lot of parents are talking to me about how their kids feel. And one evening I was returning phone calls and I talked to one particular father, and he said that he was completely exasperated. He had a son, and he says in his group of 4 or 5 people, he says, you know what they're talking about? He says they're talking about suicide. And he says, I am so concerned with where this is all heading to. And so I'm sure you're hearing a lot from your frontline people. What is a major concern that you're hearing from the Boys and Girls Clubs, frontline workers, the folks that actually work with the youth in Canada?
Yeah, so I'd be able to speak from the perspective of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and I'd say that they're seeing the same, listening to the voices of young people, that despair, not being able to see where the future or what the future looks like. Right now, there's so many young people that are just trying to, and I think many of us trying to figure out what does life look like beyond this pandemic. And it's very challenging, particularly for youth, because the pathways that once existed may not be existing in the future. And so the opportunity for Big Brothers Big Sisters and organizations like BGC Canada and others really do provide those opportunities for young people to see that future, where people and how people are standing beside them and for them. And so I'll go back to some of the data that Margie shared around the how young people are feeling in community, and making sure that we continue to put those critical investments into frontline community services.
Thank you for that answer. And you know, those are the kinds of things that I'm hearing as well. And I'm hearing it from the parents, but I'm also hearing it from the youth that I talk to, is they're looking at their future, and they keep asking, is my future going to be a future of masks and restrictions and not seeing my friends, not being able to travel, not being able to do this? And so as a politician, I'm telling these people, well, you know what, it will change, but what they're looking for is a plan. And could you make any suggestions as in the absence of a plan coming from the government, what you would suggest going forward?
From the perspective of Big Brothers Big Sisters, to continue to put investments in community support services. So as we shared throughout the presentation, the supports for our community service organizations, programs such as the Youth Employment Skills Strategy, and expanding some of the funding there, as we know has happened and should happen in the future, to give organizations such as the community service organizations that we're collectively representing, as well as Big Brothers Big Sisters, to make sure that that we are able to maintain services in community.
Thank you. Thank you both. Ms. Katrakis, you let her wrap it up.
Thank you, Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that it would be worthwhile. A lot has been said here from our colleagues on the Conservative side, especially where the rollout of vaccinations and rapid testing is concerned. And I think it's worthwhile to correct and to share with our witnesses here today and with Canadians who are watching the numbers. We've heard our Prime Minister time and time again say that, you know, we've really ramped up our purchasing, and, you know, vaccines are being received, and any Canadian that wants to be vaccinated will do so, and will have the opportunity to do so by the end of September. We've currently, there have been 8.1 million vaccine doses which have been administered to Canadians, and we've delivered more than 10.5 million doses to the provinces and territories. And I know, Ms. Jansen, you find this funny. I'm really glad that I'm offering some comedy relief, but this is a serious issue. You know, in terms of rapid tests, almost 42 million have been shipped to the provinces and territories. And of those 42 million of rapid tests, only 9.7 have been deployed per an article that National Post. But if you go onto Canada.ca, you'll see that that number is 10.5 million have been deployed. You'll also note on that, which is a great site, and I invite everybody to check it, some provinces are doing better than others. For instance, in my own province of Quebec, they've received, we've shipped actually 4.8 million rapid tests, and almost 1.9 have been deployed and administered. If I look at British Columbia, where my colleague Ms. Jansen is from, almost 2.8 million have been shipped, and only 357,000 have been deployed. One has to take a step back and wonder why. So my question is, we're doing everything on the government is doing everything to make sure that the tools that are needed to come out of the COVID safely and reopen our economy, we're doing everything possible and more, and Canadians know that. So
my question is, what do you think, and this could be to anyone, and specifically maybe to Mr. Roy, what do you think the current barriers are to the use of rapid tests by businesses? And is there a role that the federal government can play in supporting provinces in their rollout of these tests? What do you think the delay is?
Mr. Waugh?
Well, certainly the Government of Canada can give guidelines to the provinces and to the various public health entities of Canada, saying that rapid result tests would be an option for the quick recovery of festivals, of events. I'm not an expert in that area, though. It's not up to us to be able to determine that. They can be used in the in the context of festivals, of shows. If you think in Ottawa, the Blues Fest organizers, it was thought that people who would be at the Saturday night event would have to go to a pharmacy to get a rapid test. But unfortunately, this notion of testing, say, between a certain number of hours on Thursday before the Saturday night show and come back with a clear bill of health has had to be abandoned because they're in the red now. There are rapid tests that could be used hand in hand with public health when you let people into an event.
For just a quick one, what would you say to those who say, or who may look, if we were to step into provincial territory, the number one thing that is said to us right away, you can't touch santé publique, you cannot, that's provincial jurisdiction. What would you say to those who may turn around if the federal government took a position and stepped in and took over the deployment of the rapid tests? What would you say to those who may say we're overstepping our boundary?
We'll have to a very quick answer. We have to go to the next panel. Who wants to take it? Mr. Waugh?
Listen, I don't think we're really dealing with jurisdictional problems here. What we're facing is big problems that we have to solve that affect all different sectors of the economy, including tourism. I'm not really very well advised in terms of jurisdictional issues.
Okay, we'll...
Chair, could I get 10 seconds?
Go ahead, Mr. Bergman.
Just to say, much like the government transitioned individuals from CERB to the CRB, it's an acknowledgement of the longer term nature of the pandemic. An investment that recognizes the pandemic's impacts on service providers is required so that we can continue to deliver services to vulnerable communities throughout this pandemic. Thanks.
Okay, and I think that is a very good advice to end on, if I can say, Mr. Bergman. I think the panel, very interesting panel. Your input from what you see happening on the ground is essential to the committee and to the government doing its work. So I do want to sincerely thank you on behalf of the committee, all the work that you do on the ground. I know during these days, you're something like in a constituency office here. You're dealing with individuals that come in the door in tears and don't know where to turn. And so we want to thank you all for that and all that you do. So with that, we will suspend for about 2 minutes and bring on the next panel. Thank you again, witnesses, for appearing, and we'll suspend for 2 minutes. This meeting suspended. as all the witnesses know, studying all aspects of COVID-19 spending and programs. So we'll immediately turn to witnesses, and if you could, we are a little tighter today than normal on this panel due to another commitment later for Parliament. So if you can hold your remarks to about 5 minutes. We'll start with the Canadian Aquaculture Industry Alliance, Mr. Kennedy, President and CEO. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Hello, members of the committee. It's great to be here with you tonight, and I hope you're all doing well. I do want to say especially thank you for your service to Canadians during this really difficult time. I'd like to start by painting a COVID recovery vision for coastal Canada. Coastal and Indigenous communities thriving, new schools, new community centers and hospitals being built, young people returning, men and women equally represented in the workforce with a sense of purpose and excitement in their work, pride in their jobs, a sense of a future of great hope and opportunity, of Canadian innovation and technology being sent around the world and collaboration with other nations in an enterprise to be nothing but the best in sustainable seafood production. Members of the committee, aquaculture can and must be a critical driver of this pride and renewal. The aquaculture seafood farming sector has huge opportunity for sustainable growth in a post-COVID recovery. Canada has arguably the most marine capacity in the world, and growth in demand for seafood is among the highest for any food sector in the world, estimated at 7 to 9% per year by the FAO of the United Nations. Aquaculture is expected to produce over 60% of total seafood, global seafood by 2030, and production, volume growth, and jobs will largely come through aquaculture development. The International High-Level Panel for a Sustainable Ocean Economy, to which Canada is a signatory, says this, that marine-based aquaculture is the most significant solution for reducing carbon emissions in the global food system, and that for every $1 invested in the sector, there's a $10 payback in health, environmental, and economic benefits. The livelihood of close to 25,000 Canadians depend on seafood farming, and the economic value of our sector is approximately $5 billion. These are good, high-paying jobs, mostly full-time in coastal and Indigenous communities where there are few other opportunities. Hundreds of small businesses across Canada are supported by our sector. The Agri-Food Economic Table recommendations from 2018 highlighted our sector, arguing that we could double production by 2030 if the proper supports were put in place, but noted that, in quotes, there are significant barriers to achieving this growth, including the fact that there is not a strong economic development focus for this sector within the federal government, close quotes. In fact, Canada has flatlined in aquaculture production for close to 20 years. We've lost over 50% of global market share to other countries such as Norway, the UK, Chile, and Australia. So what has happened to this sector during COVID? The shellfish sector has been hard hit as a majority of historical production went to the food service industry. The finfish sector, mainly salmon and trout, has a more even split between food service and retail. Retail demand for fresh fish has increased during this period, and we hope this trend will continue as Canadians historically have not eaten the 2 servings of fish per week recommended by experts. However, overall demand has not returned to pre-COVID levels. The Agri-Food Economic Table recognized there is little economic focus on the aquaculture sector in the federal system. We're an amalgam of fishing and farming. And because of this, we fall through the cracks and do not have a department that champions our sustainable economic growth. We have bits and pieces from Agriculture Canada and temporary and sporadic supports through Fisheries and Oceans, and this continued to be the same through the COVID period. If there is one single thing I would ask for your support today, it's to enable our part in strong COVID recovery. It's that you support the federal government formally and finally identifying a department to be economic champion for the seafood sector. Our sector needs a restart in Canada. Saying yes to sustainably growing this massive opportunity for Canada and identifying and properly equipping a department to provide similar supports given to land farmers will provide jobs and sustainable food production and continue to renew coastal communities. The department can work with provinces, industry, Indigenous peoples, and others to develop a national sustainable development plan. The plan would set out growth targets, identify blocks, and build solutions to sustainably growing the sector in Canada. The plan would focus and drive the attention needed to recharge the sector. The future of seafood for Canada is wild and farm together. Both sectors, wild and farming, have come together to develop a vision for Canada's blue economy potential, and really an important growth area for post-COVID, that by 2040, Canada should be the best quality, most sustainable producer of seafood in the world. And the result, a sector that strongly supports COVID recovery, with contributing to thriving and flourishing coastal and Indigenous communities. I just ask one more time for your support to formalize finally a federal economic champion for the seafood sector as a major driver for COVID recovery. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And I know I shouldn't say this, but that very recommendation was made in, I believe, 2002 on a fisheries committee that I sat on. So I would say it's high time you had a department to represent your interests. Turning then to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Stratton, Chief Economist and Senior Vice President Policy, and Ms. Durgola, Director Parliamentary Affairs. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. It's a pleasure to be here today. The Government of Canada, indeed all members of Parliament, must be recognized for the work that they have done in providing support to businesses and Canadians during this unprecedented and very uncertain time. The emergency supports that have been provided have spared many Canadian businesses from economic disaster and will help many Canadians through another challenging year. These pandemic-related fiscal supports have also come at an enormous price, and their costs will continue to mount for the coming months and beyond. Focusing government spending on the programs and policies that will encourage growth, create jobs, and help businesses recover will provide the greatest return on investment for all Canadians. Doing so will allow us to produce the revenue needed to offset the extraordinary amount of public spending we have incurred and will help Canada achieve an economic recovery that is fiscally sound. All of us understand the need for emergency spending to support people and businesses through the crisis. But we must avoid creating structural deficits that will mortgage the future of the next generation of Canadians. Despite the recent third wave of the pandemic, our strong GDP growth this year gives Canadians a taste of the economic rebound to come once vaccines are widely available. Robust government stimulus spending to jumpstart growth in the short term will likely be unnecessary since pent-up demand is ready to be released once the pandemic subsides. That doesn't mean the government needs to turn off the taps or start cutting critical programs. But this is not a typical recession that is a result of problems with economic fundamentals. Therefore, it will not require traditional stimulus injections to help spur growth. Instead, our economic recovery plan, including next week's federal budget, should focus on addressing Canada's competitiveness, such as our issues with productivity, business investment, and interprovincial trade and regulatory barriers. Addressing these issues will be the key to transforming our high growth rates from this year's initial rebound into longer-term prosperity, job creation, and an inclusive economic recovery. At the same time, we cannot lose sight of the fact that more than 1 year into the pandemic, businesses, especially small businesses and those in the hardest hit sectors, continue to struggle. These sectors will require continued support to ensure they can help propel job creation going forward. I'm joined today by my colleague Ala Durgola, Director of Parliamentary Affairs and SME Policy, who will speak to the types of targeted support that will help businesses that need it most.
Thank you, Trevin. Good afternoon. If the Canadian Chamber can leave committee members with just one message today to help businesses that are still struggling, it's this. COVID-19 business support programs must remain in place for as long as businesses, particularly those in the hardest hit sectors, are not allowed to operate without restrictions. The wage subsidy, the rent subsidy, the liquidity programs, BCAP and HASCAP, the partially forgivable small business loan, CEBA, these are all excellent programs that are necessary for the survival of business and that are working well for the most part. The government's initial focus was rightfully on creating business support programs that would be as widely accessible as possible. However, it is time to start taking a more focused approach to COVID-19 support programs and spending, and that requires a plan. For all of the subsidy and spending that Canada has seen and will continue to see, the only path to real sustainable growth is job creation and business investment. In the upcoming budget that will be released just 6 days from now, The Canadian Chamber expects to see a clear plan from the government. This plan will need to be twofold. On the one hand, we need to see continued support for the hardest hit sectors. Sectors that depend on face-to-face interactions, such as tourism, travel, hospitality, and events, are experiencing immense difficulties and are widely expected to be among the last to recover. They will need targeted policies to assist their longer recovery period. CEWS and CERS need to continue to be available beyond their current June expiry date, with a few improvements, such as increasing the CERS multi-entity cap to ensure struggling medium-sized businesses are treated fairly. Relying on the growth of only a few sectors will not get us to recovery. We need a plan that lifts everyone up and that grows all businesses, large and small, from coast to coast to coast. Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you this afternoon. We look forward to our discussion.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Then turning to Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Wilson, founder and CEO, and Ms. PK Much, board member. Floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Nancy Wilson. I'm the founder and CEO of the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce, and I'm here today with one of our board members, Petra Kasson-Munch, who will help me address questions from the committee. I'm going to stray from my notes just a little bit, the notes that I emailed, so I apologize in advance to the interpreters. Very, very briefly, I just want to define the scope of the women's entrepreneurship population and say that the group that I'm talking about today is approximately 1.1 million business entities. So that's 16% of SMEs in Canada. These are pre-pandemic figures. And that 16% is about 114,000 SMEs. And then approximately 37% of self-employed Canadians are women identified. And that's over 1 million self-employed Canadians identify as women. So these are not small figures that we're talking about. Back to my notes. So there's no doubt that women in general, both employed and self-employed and business owners, have been disproportionately hit by the COVID pandemic. And you know, there's a wealth of research to support that. And at the same time, women-owned businesses are essential and critical to Canada's economic recovery. Women-owned businesses are highly represented in sectors that were hardest hit by that pandemic. These are also the sectors that employ high numbers of women wage earners. Therefore, a side effect of investing in business recovery in those sectors is going to be alleviating some of those labor force issues and unemployment issues that we're seeing for women re-entering into the labor force. So these issues are very much intertwined with supporting women business owners getting back on their feet and recovering. One of the major issues during the pandemic, and one of the factors that led to the pandemic being so devastating on women entrepreneurs and business owners, was the fact that a lot of the financial support measures coming from the government during 2020 that were focused on business support were very much designed for traditional large business structures. And because of that, a lot of women business owners were simply not eligible for those support programs. So CEBA, the wage subsidy, certainly a lot of the loan and debt programs that were put in place, quite effective for larger traditional business structures, very much ineffective for the population that I represent at the Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce. So when we're talking about recovery policy, we need to think very differently when we're when we're designing policy for recovery. So I'm going to talk about two specific recommendations. One is we would like to see a recovery fund put together specifically with funds going directly to women entrepreneurs and business owners, and for that fund to be administered and managed by the community, by community-based organizations within the women's entrepreneurship ecosystem. And the reason for that is simply because the expertise and infrastructure exists in the ecosystem, and the delivery method, as well as knowledge about women's business structure and the relationships with the people that need that money the most, exists within the ecosystem. The second recommendation is we want to see the government double down on the women's entrepreneurship strategy. The women's entrepreneurship strategy that was initially introduced in budget 2018 was groundbreaking. It received a lot of attention globally, and rightly so. And it was starting to gain some traction when the pandemic hit. And in order to really see that strategy, reach its goals, the government needs to reinvest in it. We want to see at least $5 billion reinvested into that women's entrepreneurship strategy to regain that traction, to regain ground that has been lost, and to support both the ecosystem of organizations that support women's entrepreneurship, to provide emergency funding during the recovery, as well as to start implementing a longer-term sustainable women's entrepreneurship strategy going forward so that Canada can remain globally recognized as a women's entrepreneurship champion. Finally, I echo my colleagues at the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. I think that there is a lot to be applauded in terms of the government's response last year, their fast and nimble response to the pandemic. With the recovery, I think we need to look at lessons learned and make sure that our recovery response and policies are truly inclusive going forward, and that we're able to make sure that the hardest hit during COVID, during the pandemic, are the ones that are truly taken care of the most during this recovery period. Not to the exclusion of other groups necessarily, but due consideration is required. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you very much. Just to give MPs the question lineup, the first questioner will be Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Kotrakis. Then turning to the last witnesses, Brad Sorensen, CEO of Providence Therapeutics. Brad?
Thank you very much, and thank you for the opportunity to join you today. Messenger RNA is the most effective vaccine technology on the planet. In the worldwide race for a COVID vaccine, messenger RNA was the fastest by months. It is the most effective at 95% efficacy. It will be the fastest vaccine platform to respond to variants. It is the most scalable vaccine technology, having gone from novel technology to rolling out hundreds of millions of doses within a single year. The committee will recall that prior to November 2020, no messenger RNA drug, vaccine or otherwise, had ever been approved for use in humans. In fact, prior to 2020, Moderna and BioNTech, the inventor of the Pfizer vaccine, had never even run a phase 3 trial. Yet these previously untested, and unproven companies are now providing Canada a lifeline to safety and economic stability. Providence Therapeutics looks forward to joining these companies and adding to worldwide supply of mRNA vaccines in early 2022. I would be remiss if I did not add that Providence has always been committed to prioritizing Canada's needs, and certainly it is clear that Canada will need additional vaccines in 2022, as the current vaccines are not up to the task of suppressing the variants. To recap the progress Providence has made over the past year, Providence designed a vaccine in under 4 weeks. We negotiated and paid for the license to the necessary intellectual property with Genevant of Vancouver. We established productive collaborations with the University of Toronto, Sunnybrook Research Institute, and the Ontario Institute of Cancer Research. We completed over 5 preclinical animal trials to establish the safety and efficacy of our vaccine. After we qualified our good manufacturing practices, or GMP, we manufactured enough vaccine to complete all our early clinical trials. Our phase 1 trial has been fully enrolled, and our last patient visit for follow-up is scheduled for April 20th of this month. The final results will be unblinded and available to the public in approximately 6 weeks. In the meantime, we have provided limited access to the Government of Canada via the Strategic Innovation Fund and National Research Council, plus the provinces of Alberta and Manitoba, as these groups evaluate opportunities to support phase 2 and 3 trials and manufacturing scale up for commercialization. I am pleased to advise the committee that Providence has a vaccine that is on track to being best in class compared to Pfizer and Moderna, and areas specifically in the areas of tolerability, stability, and immune response. Providence met with Health Canada on March 18th for a preclinical trial application or pre-CTA meeting to lay the groundwork for phase 2 and 3 clinical trials in Canada. These trials will be non-inferiority or comparator trials, wherein Providence vaccine will be tested directly head-to-head against an approved vaccine, and the primary readout will be a surrogate marker of immunity. This will allow Providence to run these trials in Canada, and all participants will receive a vaccine, either Providence or a competitor. No participant will be given a placebo. One critical item required for these trials that has not been resolved yet is that Providence must have access to the competitor vaccine to run the trial. We approached the Canadian government and were instructed to ask the company in question. We did, and we've been informed that they are not willing to provide doses. We have circled back with the Canadian government and are currently waiting for a further reply. It has been suggested that we should speak to the provinces, and we have. However, because this is a multi-provincial trial, it would be difficult to guarantee that all doses came from the same production lot. It is Providence's opinion that if the Canadian government is committed to supporting R&D and trials in Canada, that providing access to doses should reasonably fall within its responsibilities. We respectfully ask specifically for that practical support in keeping in mind that all doses received will in fact be administered to Canadians in the end. This committee and other witnesses are certainly aware that COVID variants are currently threatening the success of Canada's vaccine rollout. I would like to state for the record that Providence has been warning of this outcome for months, and in fact brought up the need for a broader-based vaccine to the Government of Canada back in March 2020. Providence has a funding application currently under review with the NRC to advance a variant vaccine forward to approval by Q1 2022. This variant add-on trial is set to start in October 2021. This is relevant as currently variants are successfully evading the currently approved vaccines, and Canadians will need these variant vaccines as early as possible in 2022. If Canada desires to avoid future loss of life and lockdowns with all the attendant economic and mental suffering, Absent a broad-based universal COVID vaccine, updated variant vaccines will be required yearly for the foreseeable future. As I am speaking to the Finance Committee, I will note that Canada's financial contribution received in 2020 from the NRC and NGen totaled 1.6 million. In 2021, Providence has received 1.8 million to date from Canada. The total authorized refund amounts awarded to Providence to date are 4.9 million from the NRC Phase 1 grant and 3.5 million from NGen. I look forward to your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sorensen. It's nice to hear some good news, a little bit of questionable news in there too that I guess we'll have to get to. But then we'll start with, we'll have to go to 5-minute rounds in the first round. Sorry about that. Mr. Falk, followed by Ms. Kotrakis. Ted.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for testifying today at committee. Mr. Sorensen, a quick bit of advice. Mark Scheifele and the Winnipeg Jets is where you want to place your bet. If that's helpful at all to you, I'm sure it is.
I have to confess, Brian Pallister has made me a little bit partial to Winnipeg right now.
There you go. All right. Okay. Yeah, my understanding is he's made a deal with you. So we'll talk about that a little bit, Jet. The federal government's vaccine procurement and rollout has been a disaster, often because Canada has had to source vaccines from outside the country. Meanwhile, your company is making good headway on a made in Canada vaccine. Yet you were quoted in a CTV News article at the end of January where you suggested that if engaging with the federal government is supposed to be part of that solution, it's not working. Why isn't the federal government working with you on this?
Well, thank you for the question, Ted. I will, again, you're referring to a quote made back in January. I have to acknowledge that in the last 30 days, the level of communication between Providence and the federal government, particularly the Strategic Innovation Fund, has had a significant uptick. We have been formally invited to submit an application to them for support for our Phase 3 trial, which we completed last Friday. We are hopeful that request will be evaluated on its merits and that we will be able to see some support forthcoming.
Okay, good. Canada has an opportunity to shore up COVID-19 vaccine production in my province of Manitoba near the facility near the U of M. Emergent Biosolutions signed a contract last year to produce a vaccine for your company that you developed, and you've got the backing of our Premier Pallister. The federal industry minister says that he wants to support you, but then his spokesperson walked that back, and those remarks as reported in the Winnipeg Free Press. Have you been able to get any basic commitments from the federal government? I think you've kind of just answered that question, that they are talking with you collaboratively, and how's that going?
You know, I'm not somebody who likes to, watch life in a rearview mirror. I like to think what's coming forward. I believe that that the federal government is learning from the past and is going to seek the opportunity and take advantage of the opportunity presented to them to have a world-class mRNA vaccine manufactured here in Canada, and we'll support that. To date, all of the support that we've received or is being contemplated by the federal government is strictly related to the clinical trial aspect. We have had no engagement with the federal government as it relates to manufacturing or scale up for commercialization. So they seem reluctant to begin those discussions until we are farther along in the clinical trial process.
Okay. And also, I know I'm going back to February, some quotes that you made, but you indicated back then that you had the capacity to produce about 120 million vaccines right here in Canada, and yet that the federal government wasn't offering your help at that, offering you any help or taking your calls at that time. So 50 million doses you thought could be ready this year. How could the government better support you in achieving that objective? I guess making the vaccine available was one of the ways you suggested, but is there anything else?
Candidly, the chance of us producing 50 million doses has passed. that was proposed and made aware to the federal government and the provincial governments in January. The Manitoba government took advantage of that opportunity. In order for us to produce the vaccines in the volumes that we're discussing, we have certain key raw materials that we have to secure and acquire, and there's lead times associated with that.
Okay.
The soonest we can start production in Canada at scale now is not in July anymore. It would be in September. So we still could produce tens of millions of vaccines this year.
Okay. The other vaccine doses that are currently being used and prescribed here in Canada range in price from the cheapest being $3 to $4 a dose to the most expensive being around $37 a dose. Where do you see your company's vaccine landing?
So our term sheet that we have with the Manitoba government and what was proposed across the board in Canada was $18 Canadian a dose. And, I'm not ashamed to say that Providence is making a fairly reasonable profit at that price. If there was an opportunity to do something and improve on that pricing, we certainly would look at it. Once we have the full supply chain integrated into Canada, which we're in the process of doing, we will be able to reduce those prices further. But right now, we still currently rely for 2021 on an international supply chain, and we're looking to reduce that reliance by 2022.
Okay, we will have to
thank you,
move
Mr. Sorensen. I think my time
Ted.
is up.
Thank you both. Turning then to Ms. Kotrakis, and I believe Ms. Zerowitz wants the last question in this round with you. Annie, floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for appearing here this afternoon and for your testimony. My question is to Ms. Wilson. The Canadian Women's Chamber of Commerce has commented on the need for universal childcare as an important part of our economic recovery. Can you elaborate on this?
Sure. Thank you for the question. So absolutely, childcare is essential to support women entrepreneurs. It is without a national childcare program. It is my belief that any other strategy or policy interventions may certainly have an impact, but we will always be struggling against the issue of unpaid care work and a disparity in the amount of time that women entrepreneurs are able to spend on building their businesses, as well as other inequalities when you look regionally and within urban centers about accessibility of childcare. It's a complicated issue. There are certainly individuals and organizations that know much more specifically about childcare than I do. So what I'd say is national childcare is incredibly important for women entrepreneurs. It is not a panacea, however. It is not the end-all and be-all solution for women business owners. It is one piece of the puzzle. And I would also add that a national child care program is of benefit to parents of all genders. Right now, it's very much positioned, and we position it as a benefit to women entrepreneurs. And that's simply because because of gender roles, because of the amount of unpaid care work that falls on predominantly women identified parents, it is going to be primarily a benefit for mothers, for women. Going forward, envisioning a more equal division of labor, a national child care program really is going to benefit all Canadians. It's going to benefit our children. It's going to benefit our early childhood educators. It's going to benefit employers, and it's going to benefit parents of all genders.
We are going to move to Ms. Zerwitz for the end of this round, and then on to Mr. St. Marie.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair, and thanks to everyone for their excellent presentations. My question is directed to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Stratton. Mr. Stratton, last week in the Globe and Mail business section, there was an article that started like this: Canada's beleaguered economy has an $80 billion a year stimulus injection sitting right in front of it, and it won't cost its governments a penny to pick it up. They won't have to raise taxes for it. They'll actually make money from it, lots of it. What would it take? One weekend, former Bank of Canada Governor Stephen Poloz told an online forum last week, it would have to be a heck of a weekend. Removing Canada's largely indefensible barriers to interprovincial trade would require a rare collective political goodwill among provincial premiers and serious leadership from Ottawa. My question to you, Mr. Stratton, should eliminating interprovincial trade barriers be an urgent and immediate priority for our federal government and a key part of Canada's economic recovery plan?
Absolutely. You know, I would agree with those remarks about the potential economic benefit from removing interprovincial trade barriers. And you know, there are many people that have said this. I mean, the International Monetary Fund has also looked at this, and they've you know, estimated that it can add about 4% real GDP per capita to Canada's economy. It's going to be incredibly important for, you know, when we have difficult fiscal situations going forward. You know, these kinds of policies focusing on reducing regulatory burdens, focusing on reducing interprovincial trade barriers are low cost or no cost ways to get to economic recovery.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you all. Turning then to Mr. St. Marie, followed by Mr. Johns. Gabriel?
Oui, merci, Monsieur le Président.
Yes, thank you, Chair, and hello to all our witnesses. Thank you for your presentations. Mr. Stratton, or your colleague, I have a first question for you. I have well understood the importance of maintaining the measures that are in place, like the queues and like the rent support. But my question goes to what's going to happen after all this. Ms. Freeland said that there would be $100 billion for the recovery after the pandemic. And if you look at the monies being put in by the Biden administration, that's a lot of money as well. Some economists say no, that's not what should be done. Others say that's not enough. What is the position of your organization with this type of spending?
Absolutely, and I think it's important to keep in mind that not all types of spending is stimulus. So, you know, I don't know of any economists saying to turn off the spending taps. You know, there are obviously a lot of Canadians and businesses out there that still need support. But support programs aren't meant to be stimulus. Stimulus spending is when governments step in to spur demand when it's absent in the market. You know, they're stimulating demand. And if we look at some of the data that came out this week from the Bank of Canada, both the Business Outlook Survey and the Consumer Confidence Survey, we know that there's pent-up demand in the economy. Businesses are planning on investments in anticipation of this being released, and consumers are planning on spending more after vaccinations are widespread, even if their income expectations remain the same. It'll be, you know, there's quite a bit of savings in bank accounts right now that might be released. So while we need support programs, we do not necessarily need stimulus for stimulus' sake of jumpstarting demand. You know, it's ready to be released, and it's not fiscal policy that will release it, but health policy. Nothing will actually have a greater impact on our economic growth than getting the pandemic under control. So that's why our position is that any government spending should focus on those longer term competitiveness issues when it comes to the regulatory burden, improving productivity, removing interprovincial trade barriers, infrastructure spending to a certain extent, but not for shovel-ready stimulus, but for improving our long-term competitiveness.
Okay, merci. Donc,
thank you. So as I understand it, as you said in your presentation. Yes, for support programs during the pandemic. We've got to get out of it as quickly as possible, but not necessarily a recovery program. And from your point of view, if I've understood, not to stimulate the demand because there is pent-up demand. Yes, you can stimulate the offer. You can equip businesses to move ahead and to face the challenges of the future in various sectors. Do you have any idea about what could be done with respect to global demand to stimulate that?
So global demand is also projected to rise in the second half of this year too, and economic growth projections have been revised upwards for the second half of this year as well. And it's for similar reasons that we'd see in Canada for demand being projected to increase later on as well. I think what's very important is that, leaving stimulus aside for a second, what's very important to me and that I'm concerned about is what's called economic scarring. That there are kind of compounded effects on business investment, labor market scarring in terms of lifetime income, things along these lines that are longer term impacts that we'll see well after we have the health aspects of the pandemic in the rearview mirror. And focusing on that's going to be very important from shifting from rebound to recovery.
Merci. Monsieur le Président.
Mr. Chairman, do I have time for a last question? No, I'll stop then. I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thank you, Gabriel. Then Mr. Johns, followed by Mr. Fast. Gord?
Mr. Chair, can you confirm how much time I have?
5 minutes.
Okay. I'll start with the Chamber of Commerce. As a former executive director of the Chamber of Commerce, first I want to thank all of you for the work that you're doing and for the hard work you've done throughout the pandemic. We've 6 chambers in my riding. They've been instrumental in supporting their membership and our local economy. Mr. Agola, I'm going to direct my attention to you since you're representing the small business side of things. The recent CEBA loan has been obviously, life-saving for many small businesses, and we've seen the government just expand it to $60,000. But with the third wave now happening and many businesses under more shutdowns, we're putting forward a pitch to the government to expand that by another $20,000 and another $10,000 forgivable portion, and extending the repayment timeline to 2025. Do you think that extension would make a difference right now for those small business owners?
Well, thank you for the question. And I think that, to your point, you bring up an excellent timeline where 2022, a year ago, seemed like plenty of time to repay loans. But here we are a year later, we're in the third wave. Small businesses are pretty much maxed out in terms of debt capacity. So extending that repayment timeline is something that I think would be a good use of government's time to revisit, particularly for small businesses. But that being said, I think in terms of extending the loan, I think that's also something that they could do. But that's also an example of where it's time to start tailoring those supports to the sectors and the businesses in the sectors that really need it, versus a broad blanket open to everyone, including those who may not necessarily need that additional access to additional loan, but more of a targeted towards those hardest hit sectors.
I really appreciate that, especially someone who comes from an area that's dominated heavily by tourism. So you can imagine that sector and how it's being impacted. Ms. Wilson, you just talked about childcare, and actually the Comox Valley Chamber of Commerce in my riding, their number one priority pre-pandemic was affordable, accessible, universal childcare. And we look at Quebec, where 70,000 individuals went back to work. And like you said, all genders benefited from that program, but it was predominantly women that benefited from their childcare program, and their GDP, as you know, grew 2%. It's been instrumental for their economy. Right now, we've seen women disproportionately impacted by the COVID crisis. Can you speak about how critical this is to the economic piece, to helping bring people back to work, especially women?
So there's no doubt, as I said, childcare is essential. And I think it's long overdue that Canada implements a national childcare program that is publicly funded that takes the model that we see in Quebec that has excellent, robust data showing that it works, and that there's a good return on investment there, and that the labor force participation increased in Quebec. So the data's there, it's there in other countries, it makes sense. It should be quite honestly a no-brainer. So my short answer is let's do it already, right?
Yeah.
And then of course we see, but let's face it, even if we had a national childcare program across Canada, those childcare facilities would have been closed during social distancing. So we still have to look at systemic inequalities that exist within the economic system, as well as, you're looking at tourism. Women entrepreneurs are highly represented in tourism and accommodation in that sector. So there are other issues to be solved in addition to the childcare issue in order to really, get that sector back on track.
Very quickly, Gord.
Yeah, just I know I've only got a few seconds, and obviously we're seeing the housing crisis that's going on right now, and the impact that's having on not just employees of business owners, but actually business owners themselves. And we used to, 10% of our housing market was non-market housing in the 70s and 80s. Now we're less than 4%. Can you speak about how critical it is for the federal government to invest in non-market housing and partner with all levels of government and start building housing?
Yeah, I think that's it's critical when you look at making sure that an intersectional sort of, not only a gender-based analysis is implemented when you look at economic housing issues, but also we're looking at intersectional issues. And so when you pair, economic inequalities with racial inequalities and gender inequalities, you see that, these issues can't be addressed adequately in a vacuum or by solving them in just one area. We really have to look at how everything is interconnected, and how we can address things at the systemic level.
Okay, we'll have to move on to Mr. Fast, followed by Mr. Fraser. 5 minutes, Ed.
Thank you. And I'm going to direct my questions straight to Mr. Stratton, because it's seldom that we have an economist at the table. So thanks for coming, both of you from the Canadian Chamber. Help me put a few pieces together. Mr. St. Marie has already taken us down that path, but the different pieces I want you to put together is, like so many other central banks around the world, the Bank of Canada pursued a policy of aggressive quantitative easing, especially early on in the pandemic. It still hasn't tapered off its purchases of government bonds. Then you layer on top of that the massive stimulus that's happening in the United States, and the infrastructure spending that they're hoping to get passed down there. Add to that, pretty strong GDP growth. And then you've got on the sidelines, you've got corporate and household savings at record levels. When you put all of that together, do we still need a $100 billion stimulus program in Canada? What could be the impact of all of these influences on our economy?
So, certainly central banks in Canada and all over the world have, pursued quantitative easing. And we saw how this tool can be used successfully to address economic downturns during the 2008 crisis. That being said, I think that a lot of central bankers themselves would agree that there are limits to how much government debt central banks can buy. And so there are risks of inflation. there are economic growth projections have started to tilt towards upside risks, that growth will actually be higher than was initially projected. And certainly, I like the way that it was framed in terms of putting the pieces together, because I really think that we need to think about it holistically and systemically and macroprudentially, is thinking about the combination of monetary policy, fiscal policy, and potentially pent-up demand at the same time. And so certainly there are risks for inflation if the desired amount of easing required is overestimated, and too much money is created by the purchase of liquid assets. That being said, the bank has said that it will stop quantitative easing efforts once the economy has recovered, and so it'll be very important for them to kind of keep an eye on that. And certainly they've said that if there is more inflationary pressure than we expect, then they will adjust policy accordingly.
Could you expand a little bit on productivity enhancing investments, infrastructure? If you're looking at productivity driving infrastructure, what would that be?
It's a great question. I think this is an issue that's actually existed in Canada pre-pandemic as well. I mean, we have historically had lower productivity levels than the United States, for instance, but it's actually been diverging from the United States since around 2011, our productivity levels. And it's because some of the competitive policies that have been put in place down south to encourage investment and in both technologies and skills, we haven't seen the same level of investments or same types of competitive policies put in place here to encourage that. And so it'll be very important to try and do that going forward. As many people have talked about during the pandemic, there might be an acceleration of digitalization, of course, ensuring that many Canadians are involved in reskilling and upskilling so that they also don't fall behind. But in terms of productivity, economists like me talk about just outputs in terms of units of input. And being able to kind of invest and create that investment environment for technologies and skills is what will help enhance that for us. And that includes infrastructure and both traditional infrastructure, but also broadband infrastructure will have a huge impact on that going forward. And specifically for rural and remote communities, not necessarily having divergence between urban communities when it comes to the economic opportunities available.
Last question, Ed.
Yeah, can you comment at all how we repatriate the foreign direct investment that we've lost over the last, say, decade? Like there's no doubt that we're paying a steep price for not having had a competitive environment that attracts foreign investment. Any ideas on how we get that back into Canada?
Yes, I do. And so I think, first of all, even though we see business investment going up in the short term, it's because of increased demand. The key to attracting foreign and domestic investment over the medium or longer term will be, instead of having people investing in Canada because consumer demand is going up, having them invest in Canada because the investment conditions are competitive compared to anywhere else that they can put their money. And certainly that has to do with policies that can have the greatest return on investment for businesses, including regulatory policy, including tax policy, including infrastructure spending, and obviously the skills and talent in our workforce.
Mr. Fraser, followed by Mr. St. Marie and Mr. Johns. Mr. Fraser?
Excellent. My question is for Ms. Dragola. I'm sorry if I've gotten the pronunciation wrong. Thanks for the thumbs up. You said, I love when witnesses start by saying the one thing you can do, and then tell us what the one thing we can do is, which is to keep things in place, so to keep emergency programs in place. Mr. Stratton referred to the phenomenon of economic scarring, which has been front of mind for us at the very beginning. I'm curious if you can offer perspective into what kind of an economic landscape we may have been dealing with had the government not intervened to put forward measures like the wage subsidy, like CEBA, like CERB in some instances at the outset of this pandemic. What would the world we're living in look like in the absence of those benefits?
Thank you. That's a great question. I think we would have seen a lot more businesses struggling, closing, a lot more jobs lost. Like Trevin said from the beginning, we do commend the government for introducing these programs quickly and making them widely available to businesses. We've seen that for CEBA and CEWS, over 50% of small businesses have accessed them. The numbers are very, very significant. And without these programs, without those supports, we would have seen unemployment numbers that were much larger, businesses closing. But that being said, this is why today we're calling for these programs to be extended and for businesses to have that certainty that those programs will still be in place past June. We're in this third lockdown now. Many businesses in Ontario have been shut, especially if, restaurants, for example, since the fall. So we just really need to make sure that these programs remain in place, that they're still there for businesses who need them. Because without it, I think we're going to see a lot more devastating consequences.
You're muted, Sean.
Thank you, Chair. For what it's worth, in between the last panel and this one, I received a call from the executive director of a local performing arts center who works with the arts industry right across Canada, who said precisely the same thing. Mr. Chair, am I going to run out of time? I don't want to encroach on my colleagues.
You've got 3 minutes.
I think I'm splitting my time, though, so maybe I should call it there. Thank you.
Okay, then who are you splitting it with? Mr. Fragaskatis?
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Since we are splitting, I don't think I have much time, so I will ask Mr. Stratton. And Ms. Darowitz spoke about the importance of interprovincial trade barriers as they exist and the negative impact that those continue to have on the Canadian economy. Do you think that this committee ought to take the opportunity at some future point, Mr. Stratton, to study those barriers further and provide recommendations directly to the government on how they can best be overcome?
Our position has always been that even though this might be a jurisdictional, provincial, territorial issue, that a lot of businesses are looking for national leadership on the reduction of interprovincial trade barriers. And so certainly, studying what barriers might exist and what might be the way to reduce them, not only including what we traditionally think about in terms of interprovincial trade barriers, but also labor market barriers too. I think that would be appreciated, and the Canadian Chamber would be happy to participate in that as well.
I look forward to that, and I, in a very collegial way, Mr. Chair, through you, tell my Conservative colleagues to get on board with that at a future point. Of course, once we've reviewed COVID issues at the committee that we've been wrestling with, I think that would be something the committee should really delve into. And I thank my colleague Ms. Darowitz for initially raising the idea recently. Mr. Chair, do I have time for more?
One more question.
So maybe I will stick with the chamber, and whether it's Ms. Dragola or Stratton that wishes to deal with it. Could you go a bit more into your focus on productivity? I thought that was really interesting. And I think it was Mr. Fast that had raised a question relating to it, but I still think it's good to get it further on record. So if I understand your argument, you expect the pent-up demand that exists, that's sitting there and post-pandemic will be unleashed to really lead to enormous growth in the Canadian economy. Your focus and call to attention is on productivity, but what does that look like? How can the government best support that? Is that investing in R&D? Is that investing in, fill in the blanks for me? What exactly do you mean when you say productivity?
So by government investments, certainly there are some things that can help with that. Like I mentioned, investments in broadband infrastructure, for instance, can be useful for that, in enhancing productivity over the longer term and also economic opportunity. There are certainly other things that can be useful that don't even have to do with government investments or spending. Looking at a review of the SHRED program, to be able to really spur our research and development, scientific research and development going forward, would be a great way to do it. Looking at how we might alleviate some of the tax burdens temporarily, and then of course tax competitiveness over the longer term, specifically for small businesses, to actually encourage that investment for productivity enhancing technologies or skills going forward would be another way to do it. And so there are a lot of different policy measures that don't only have to do with spending, but also have to do with other aspects of economic policy too. And we have definitely made some submissions when it comes to the budget regarding that.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Might even throw in regulations, I suppose. We'll go to one question each from Mr. St. Marie, Mr. Johns, and Ms. Jansen. We have a hard stop at 6:30 Ottawa time. So, Mr. St. Marie.
Oui, merci, Monsieur.
Yes, thank you, Chair. My question is for the Canadian Chamber of Canada and also the Women's Chamber of Commerce. The pandemic has really hit business hard, and business has moved online. Because of that, there are Ottawa is not able to collect taxes systematically. These people, online sellers, are not paying taxes. It was not in the case. That was not the case, rather, in past years. Do you have any comments about this state of affairs, and what can be done about it? To what extent?
Who's taking that, Miss Wilson or Miss Much?
Et puis c'était pour la Chambre de
It was for the Chamber of Commerce as well, both chambers.
I'll turn this over to the Canadian Chamber of Commerce. There's not a lot of women that own tech giants.
Okay, Mr. Stratton, it's over to you.
Sorry, can you just repeat the question?
Oui,
Yes. Your members have suffered an economic shock, and the web giants like Amazon, web sellers have benefited from that because shopping's gone online, but Ottawa can't collect taxes from them. So what do you say about it? How it's affecting your members?
So I would say there's definitely been an increase in e-commerce during the pandemic. And there have been many small businesses that have also been able to adapt in doing this too. Small businesses of all types, also small businesses in rural communities as well, being able to access markets or access customers in markets that might have not previously been possible. And so, going forward, certainly the increased digitalization of small businesses is going to be very important. But I think it's also important to keep in mind that some of those businesses in the hardest hit sectors really rely on physical presence for their business models to work. And so that might not be an option for them. So that's going to be very important too. Certainly when it comes to the taxation of technology companies, we have been in favor of a digital sales tax in Canada for quite some time. And that could certainly help with the fiscal situation as well.
Okay, thank you all. Mr. Johns with a single question, followed by Ms. Jansen, the same. Gord?
Great. Yeah, thanks. Ms. Wilson, you talked about the challenges that many of your members are facing around liquidity and access actually to all the programs, but specifically to liquidity and able to access the CEBA loan program. Do you support and do you believe it's needed to expand that program to $80,000 and change the loan repayment date to later than next year? And also, do you think that there should be a micro kind of structure of that program for those that can't access it?
So I'm going to let my colleague, PK, address this question around debt.
PK.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy. As an entrepreneur, I can answer that question by saying that I do think that extending the repayment and offering larger opportunities is a good thing. But the reality is most women entrepreneurs don't have the kind of credit facility or rating or net worth to be able to access some of that funds, because at the creditor or at the bank level, you are still asked to personally guarantee these loans. If your business is you're still asked to personally guarantee, you're still on the hook for it. So many of the entrepreneurs that we see are reluctant. They would love to be able to leverage that, but I know so many, and I work in a number of different entrepreneurship spaces in the ecosystem that simply A, tried, could not get access to it, and B, are reluctant because they're not sure, especially early stage businesses. You don't have the track, and I've run both. I've had an established one and a startup. In my established business world, I would have been able to predict what the change in demand and all of that would have been and my ability to repay. But in a startup where you're still spending on innovation and market building and community building, you don't actually know whether you are going to be able to repay that money in 3 or 4 years because you're still at that stage of placing a bet. So I'll stop there just by saying I think we need to reframe and reconsider how we support entrepreneurs, especially women who do tend to have less of a net worth, balance sheet for a host of reasons, pay equity gaps, et cetera, then how do we encourage, how do we help those women entrepreneurs get access to these, given that we still are relying on traditional creditor criteria?
Yeah.
Thank you all. Last question to you, Ms. Jensen.
Yes, thank you. I'm going to ask Trevor Stratton. I was talking recently with Anita Huberman. She's the CEO of the Surrey Board of Trade, an amazing woman there. And we were talking about, obviously the provincial barriers is a big issue that they've recommended that we need to cooperatively work on getting rid of. So I'm not sure why we need to study it again, but she also was talking about, reducing regulatory burdens. But one of the recommendations she was really wanted me to talk about was in regards to our deteriorating relationship with our neighbors to the south over the last 5-6 years. And she even mentioned, some of the decisions that President Biden has made recently that are really quite impactful on Canada. And their recommendation they gave us was to create a Canada-U.S. relation committee to implement an economic recovery plan that recognizes the integration of the North American economy. I wonder if you could kind of give me a little bit of a rundown of how you think about this situation.
Mr. Stratton.
Absolutely, and first of all, I'll say that that Anita is one of the greatest champions of the Chamber Network across the country. She's great. I think, as sometimes happens, I think the business community might be one step ahead in terms of doing this. So you may have noticed that just this morning, we announced a task force that is going to be looking at Canada-U.S. relations when it comes to economic recovery and a number of different areas, including infrastructure, including a green recovery, including opening the border when it comes time to do so. And so, if there is an opportunity to work together with the committee when it comes to that work, we're also happy to do that.
Okay, I'm sorry, we will have to end it there. There's a number of questions I'd like to raise myself, but we're out of time, and I do want to thank the witnesses from coming forward, taking the time from their busy days to help us out in terms of this study. So with that, thank you very much to the witnesses, and meeting adjourned. Thank you all.